Let me start with a question most people avoid. Why are so many of the smartest, most self-aware people you know quietly disappearing? Not dying. Not depressed. Not giving up. Just stepping out of the spotlight. Posting less. Sharing less. Becoming shadows in a world that demands noise. And here's the strange part. They're not doing it because they're afraid. They're doing it because they're awake. See, we live in an era where documenting your life feels more natural than living it. Before we taste the food, we photograph it. Before we feel a moment, we package it. Before we understand ourselves, we curate ourselves. Social media didn't just give us tools, it gave us a stage. And once you're on a stage, you start performing. You begin to edit your emotions, adjust your personality, shape your identity for an invisible audience you never agreed to entertain. Jung had a word for this: the persona, the mask you wear to meet the world's expectations. But in the digital age, that mask becomes a brand. Smooth. Polished. A version of you that's always on, even when you're breaking inside. But those who choose silence, those who suddenly stop posting, are not becoming empty. They're reclaiming something. They refuse to become their own advertisement. They refuse to trade their inner life for applause. They refuse to live inside a mask they didn't choose. People assume they're shy, detached, insecure. But the research and the psychology suggests the opposite. Their silence is not emptiness. It is agency. A conscious decision to protect what is real from what is performative. Jung once wrote, "The more one hides behind the persona, the more the true self suffers." And many who leave the digital stage do so because they're tired of that suffering. Tired of self-betrayal. Tired of being publicly visible yet privately unknown. Tired of living in fragments. So they make a choice most people never even consider. They stop performing. They step back. They let silence do what noise cannot. Bring them home to themselves. The psychology of invisibility. Here's something most people never realize until it's too late. Visibility changes you. Even when you think it doesn't. Every notification, every like, every comment. Little sparks of approval, tiny hits of dopamine. They all start teaching your brain one quiet, dangerous lesson. You exist if someone reacts to you. This is what psychologists call a validation loop. Not dramatic. Not obvious. But slowly, day by day, it rewires the way you see yourself. And then, there are the people who walk away from this loop. Not because they can't handle it, but because they've seen exactly what it does to them. And here's the psychological twist most people never expect. Those who choose silence often show stronger emotional regulation, less need for external approval, lower social comparison, higher autonomy, and a clearer sense of self. They don't need applause because they've stopped confusing applause with worth. But silence, let's be honest, isn't always peaceful. Some people step out of the spotlight because visibility became something else entirely. A battlefield. The fear of criticism. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear of not being enough for the audience they accidentally created. This is called self-presentational pressure. The anxious awareness that someone is always watching. Always interpreting. Always judging. Jung would say that this pressure inflates the shadow. The parts of us we desperately hope no one notices. And when the shadow grows too heavy, when the mask becomes too tight, there's only one place left to run. Silence. Not the silence of avoidance. Not the silence of weakness. But the silence of someone who refuses to perform for survival. Someone who wants connection, but not the kind that demands a performance. not the kind that requires them to trade authenticity for acceptance. Their absence is not emptiness. It's boundaries. It's self-respect. It's the first breath after being underwater for too long. Silence becomes the only place where they can finally exhale. The digital mirror. There's a moment, subtle, almost invisible, when scrolling stops being entertainment and becomes comparison. You don't notice it at first. You're just looking, just observing. But slowly, your feed becomes something far more dangerous. A mirror. A distorted one. A place where people show only fragments. Their brightest moments, their cleanest angles. Their edited happiness. And without realizing it, you begin comparing your whole life to everyone else's highlight reel. Jung had a name for this. Identification with the image. It's when the ego fuses with an illusion and calls it identity. You stop asking, "Who am I?" and start asking, "Who do they think I am?" And then, even worse, is that who I should be? But the people who disappear from the digital stage, they refuse to let a screen tell them who they are. They start noticing the psychological price of constant visibility. The way every moment becomes a product. Every memory becomes content. Every feeling becomes performance. And then they do something almost revolutionary. They take back their eyes. They take back their attention. They step away from the mirror. Because silence gives them a gift that most people today never experience. Reality, unmediated. A sunset becomes a sunset again, not a post. A moment becomes personal, not performative. A feeling is allowed to remain private, not something to be consumed by strangers. And this is where Jung becomes brutally relevant. Jung believed that meaning only emerges from direct experience, not filtered experience. The more layers you place between yourself and reality, filters, edits, captions, reactions, the weaker your connection to your own self becomes. But silence strips away those layers. It restores presence, wholeness, authenticity. It lets a person live without needing to witness themselves living. And that, in a world addicted to self-display, is nothing short of psychological rebellion. The shadow of niceness. There is a quieter layer to this story. One that most people never talk about. Not everyone leaves the digital world because they are searching for peace. Some leave because they are healing from harm. You can recognize these people instantly. They are the ones who learned, very early in life, that harmony has a price. A high one. They discovered that to be accepted, they had to shrink. They had to be agreeable, pleasant, predictable, always nice. They learned that conflict was danger, and truth was too expensive. So they became experts at self-erasure. Jung warned about this. He said that when the persona grows too bright, too perfect, too pleasing, the shadow grows darker to compensate. And nowhere does this dynamic grow faster than online. Because the internet rewards a polished persona. It celebrates the curated version of you. The nice one, the diplomatic one, the agreeable one who never disrupts the illusion. But here's the psychological twist. The nicer the persona, the heavier the shadow. Inside, something starts to tighten. A quiet resentment, a quiet grief, a quiet fatigue. The feeling that you're performing kindness instead of living it. And eventually, something breaks. Something whispers, "No more." Some of the people who go silent aren't hiding. They're confronting the part of themselves they buried to keep the peace. confronting the truth they swallowed. To be liked. Confronting the needs they ignored. To fit in. Jung said, "The shadow that is not confronted becomes destiny." So many who disappear from the digital spotlight are finally refusing that destiny. Their silence is not avoidance. It is reclamation. Integration. A slow, deliberate return to what they actually feel. They are learning the difference between kindness and compliance, compassion and self-sacrifice, connection and performance, being loved and being used. In that silence, something remarkable happens. They meet the parts of themselves they abandon to be nice. And for the first time, they stop apologizing for being real. The return to presence. The people who step away from the digital stage are not rejecting the world. They are rediscovering it. They are rediscovering something Jung called the self. The unfragmented core beneath all masks. The part of you that cannot be edited, optimized, or performed. A part of you that can only be lived. Because here's an uncomfortable truth most people avoid. Social media rewards personas. But life, real, meaningful life, rewards authenticity. And authenticity requires something the internet can't offer. Silence. Solitude. And the courage to be unobserved. Individuation, the process of becoming your true self, doesn't happen when you're being watched. It begins the moment the audience disappears. It begins when you stop chasing approval. When you sit with the parts of yourself you abandoned. When you allow the inner noise to quiet, so the inner voice can speak. And many who fall silent online are stepping into that journey. Without even realizing it, they discover that once the world stops watching, the real work begins. The honest work. The work of becoming someone who doesn't need to be seen to exist. Because meaning doesn't come from visibility. It comes from depth. Not everyone will understand this path. Some will call it withdrawal. Some will call it insecurity. Some will even call it failure. But those who feel it, those who hear that subtle, insistent pull towards stillness, know the truth. Silence is not disappearance. It is transformation. A quiet, private evolution. A return to a life that feels like yours again. And maybe, just maybe, you feel it too. A hunger for something real. A desire to exist without staging yourself. A longing to feel present in your own life, instead of watching yourself live it. If so, listen to it. Step back. Let the noise fall away. Feel yourself returning to the center you abandoned to stay visible. Because as Jung wrote, your vision will become clear only when you look into your own heart. Not into a screen. Not into an audience. Not into a persona. Into yourself. The honest part. The unedited part. The part that doesn't need applause. To be real. And if this message resonated with you, then maybe it's time to test your own silence. Turn off the noise. Let the moment breathe. And give yourself permission. Not just to live, but to live truly.